Hey there, all you pretty pennies and loco lennies. Welcome back to Broadway by Ghostlight. I'm Mark Benani, and I am back along with the dancin' man himself, Chris Gattelli, to break down episode 4 of Schmigadoon's season 2, titled Something Real. And though only 2 numbers this episode featured much choreography, holy moly, were they 2 big and brilliant numbers. Yes, we are breaking down the songs Talk to Daddy and Good Enough to Eat. So much to talk about, and not only do we get more amazing pre-viz footage like we've had in other episodes, but we also get some great rehearsal footage featuring the young ensemble of kids who sang and danced up a storm this episode. Plus, Chris shares an amazing gift given to him by the incredible props department that ties directly into this episode. It's such an amazing story. I also have updates about future videos with Chris and other fun Schmigadoon content I'll share after this, but I am so excited to get into this interview with Chris and share his stories and his brilliance with you all, so let's just get right to it. Chris Gattelli, welcome back. Thank you so much for being here.
Thank you again. I love it. I love it. This is so much fun talking to you.
I have a ball. I know the viewers have a ball, like I've said, and we really appreciate your time, which is precious.
It's
So
worth anything for the show. Literally anything for the show.
thank you, thank you, thank you from all us Schmiga nerds. So episode 4, titled Something Real, we get 2 of the biggest dance numbers with so many Easter eggs. I don't know how you did it all, but we'll dive into that. So we start with Talk to Daddy.
Talk to Daddy, talk to Daddy. He will rock you when you are sad. He isn't ideal, but you need to heal. So talk to Daddy, talk to Daddy now.
So personally, Rhythm of Life and the Frug are my favorite parts of Charity. So this was just like, mwah. When you got the song Talk to Daddy, did it say Rich Man's Frug / Rhythm of Life, or did you bring the Frug part into it? How did that work?
It didn't I don't remember it necessarily saying it was those, but when I heard the track, I was like, oh boy. I mean, the second it started, I was like, oh, here we go. This is the one. I was so excited because it was the doom 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 doom. So there was that that started it. But then the first boom boom ba boom boom ba ba da ba, I was like, oh no. I was like, we're doing it all. I was like, we're gonna do it all. I mean, it was so yeah, it was a fun one for sure. This is definitely another one of my favorites.
And then you had all these telephones to work with too, which you have the little like finger move like they're doing a rotary dial, right? With certain moves.
Yeah,
it was genius.
Well, I mean, it was talk about like breaking it down. It was so much fun because I didn't want to just like start off full throttle because it would have been so easy to like just go. I was like, I want to make sure I build this so we don't kind of stay too long at the fair and then kind of, so I wanted to, for Keegan and Cecily, to knowing that the tribe told stories in parables, I wanted them to at least do the first 2 verses in parables. So like that whole first bit with Keegan was so much fun to come up with. I mean, I staged Godspell twice, and it is one of the most fun shows to work on because it's like anything is game, anything and everything, and it's like take this prop and use it as a this. And so to get to do that on this show was so much fun because not only did you have what was there, but you could ask for it too. So you could like create things and like we did, but just all the references to like the letters from her father when the letters came around, and like even the penny that he threw and the tribe caught it, and just all of that kind of literal-ish storytelling was really fun to come up with. And then knowing Josh had the sock puppet, I was like, oh well, we've got it. I was like, Cecily has to do this with a sock puppet. I was like, so I can like, finish 2022 on like the biggest high. because I was like giving her that was I couldn't wait. And she picked it out. She picked the one that she wanted with the big red hair.
Nice. Loco Lenny.
But it was so much fun because then because I knew I had to do.
So that's where we start with the.
Oh yeah, and so I knew. I mean, that was like a So I was like,
it also is like it's also like the hooves almost, because they're a little bit. I feel like the lamb thing.
The lamp thing,
yeah.
And they but then to add the puppets into that language just then started, it was like, oh no, this is not happening. And I was like, well, now they have to dance that, now they have to do a whole section with them.
So talk to daddy, talk to daddy. He will rock you when you are sad. He left you alone, but maybe he's grown. So talk to daddy, talk to daddy.
So it was really fun, but also it was one of those, at first the choice was just kind of like, oh, that's be fun and hopefully funny, or but then just visually, because the puppets were all different and the colors, like it actually, I was like, oh wow, it actually looked really good. I wasn't expecting that part of it to kind of all come together in that way, to like frame Dove with all that color and movement and whatnot. That was a happy accident. At least I didn't, that wasn't the goal, but I was really happy about just the kind of tone and color tone that it took.
Yeah.
So those first two sections were really fun. And then from there, I mean, I really leaned into Rhythm of Life a lot, because I love the number in Sweet Charity, but I wasn't as familiar, because like I mentioned, I had done Fosse, and so we did the Frug in Fosse. So I definitely knew that one, but I wasn't as familiar with Rhythm of Life. And there was I forgot, like, again, like I spoke in an earlier episode, just Fosse's, just his camera work and his shots were so brilliant. I couldn't find a place to put it in, but like there's the shot in Rhythm of Life where like he comes,
the hair,
Sammy Davis Jr. comes, he parts the hair, he parts the woman's hair, like just it just is brilliant. I mean, it really, yet again, was like that man is a genius. And so a lot of the shots in Talk to Daddy, it was almost like I led with the shots I wanted, then figured out what to do with it in a way. Like I knew I wanted an overhead shot of them laying on their backs, like doing like they were all dead, and and kind of pulling up from that, just because I thought that would be like a Fosse kind of angle. And and then the bus bit, like the popping up. I mean, this is from the that's the
right
the finale of the Frug, but I was like, yeah, but then on a bus, like they could pop up and we could have some pop-ups, and then there was the shot of then like Dove walking through the bus that I was trying to find a place for it, because there's a beautiful shot that he did in Cabaret with Liza. The image of like her walking towards the audience and just like following her feet was just really beautiful. I don't know, it just stuck in my head. So I was like, oh, let's follow Dove's feet, but we can still maintain the kind of pop-up vocabulary, and then lead up to these, the guys from the Frug that open the door to this kind of like light and like awareness. And so it was all kind of just led by camera shot more than even the steps. Like I just was like, oh, this is a place to really, we have this great playground and we can do some really great shots. And this is actually a really it's a funny story, because when it was in the script that there's the happiness bus. So in my head, I didn't put it together, or if it was in there, I didn't clock it, but I don't remember, but it was the happiness bus. So in my head, because of, the like Superstar had a bus at the top of the movie. And I feel like there was another, as I was doing all the research again, there was another shot with a big, school bus in it. And so I was like, oh, okay. So when we did the pre-viz, I set up like banks of chairs, like folding chairs, and like to like do the pop-ups. And when we sent the pre-viz in, they're like, I don't think we have that many seats. And I was like, oh no, I mean, a bus has at least, I mean, even if it's a, you know, like there was at least like, you know, 10 or 12 or something. And then it finally caught on that I didn't realize that it was a Volkswagen van.
Yes, the happiness
I
bus
was
is a
thinking,
VW bug.
so then the director was like, oh, well, we got you your bus. And I was like, wait, what? I was like, oh, I didn't
That's so
I didn't
great.
ask for a bus. I thought there was a bus that I was going to get to do some stuff on. So it was so funny that but at the same time so thrilled because I was so happy with those shots and what it let us do. Even like getting on the bus, like they had to take out like every other seat so for the dancer safety they could fit, and like just the math of that bus and just like getting just the camera in there alone with the dancers, and that math was really kind of fun to figure out. So so there was like the pull-up shot, and then the other shot that was a total, like not in the moment, but when we visited the set, I had pictured kind of in like the Rhythm of Life when Sammy Davis Jr. is kind of hanging on the front of the car.
Mm-hmm.
My head, I was thinking like, oh, that could be like on the bus, and that could be the front of the bus. Well, it turned out that like because of dimension and scale, it didn't actually like fit. But so we ended up using the truck that Josh and Melissa kind of snuggle in at the end of the episode for that next shot of I call it the kind of kaleidoscope moment where like is going and Dove's in the middle. But that was another one of those unexpected, just, you know, again, John Joffin, the DP, it was like, oh, well, the sun is going to be setting over here. And just the angle that he got it, and that sun was coming through. It was someone got a still from one of the monitors that is one of my favorite pictures from the shoot of that, just them on that truck, just with like the fabrics and the light, with actual sun, like backlighting them, and it just beautiful. I don't know how we timed that, but that I was like, lucky us. And so like it went from there, and then we went onto the bus, and then toured through, and then we do the obvious Frug bit where they're holding pencils instead of
right, and they're doing the cross. And
then the women have they're instead of the idea of the jewels dripping, which makes the women hinge like that, they're holding the papers underneath. I don't know if that was readable, but so there was that. And then we took the classic Frug, the hip swivel, but turned it into a phone with the dialing, and it was just good. So all of that was so much fun to come up with, and the chords, and we had a whole, I was trying to also do a nod to Bye Bye Birdie with the phones of the phone chords on one of the, I was going to do like a cross between Take Off With Us, like scaffolding, and like a Bye Bye Birdie like mash up there. And it was like, no, it's not where it didn't feel like it was moving, like the number was moving. But it led to some of that fun phone chord work that got in there. So that was cool to kind of figure out. Thinking, oh yeah, and then the rest, and then we had a tramp. We had like a mini tramp out in the middle of the street that we were like they just set a camera down and they were flipping off and jumping, and it was so freaking cool. And they were working their butts off. The dancers were working their butts off in that number. Yeah.
Okay, I think doing those flips and jumps, you have Warren Yang, Amanda Cleghorn, and Ashley St. John doing those three cuts that ended up making it into the show.
And the fact that when I saw the edit for the first time, the fact that Warren, like, they caught him like that, I mean, it was like one of those lucky, amazing, like he was in the right part of the frame at the right time. It was beautiful. I mean, they're all such beautiful dancers, but it was like one of those lucky kind of, oh my God, I can't believe we caught that. So, yeah, so that whole number, I mean, top to bottom, they worked so hard, and and it was tight. I mean, that was a tight clip on that number. Oh, I have one little here.
Hey!
Hello.
You
I don't have the crown and all that
don't have
stuff.
the crown. Aw.
I did take the mustache.
Do you have the little the dog, the fire
Little
hydrant?
hydrant that didn't get in the suitcase. No.
I was
Oh,
gonna say one of the things I wondered about in my breakdown is how much bonking of heads happened when in the bus scene where they're all shooting out from the sides.
God, luckily, knock on wood, none, because we again, like math wise, we were like, they knew exactly, like, because because in the moment you get excited and you're gonna like, and pop your head out. I was like, please, I don't want I don't want anyone to, we don't need to lose anyone. So like, let's really make sure that, like, okay, like this part of my, my torso is like this part of the seat, and that's all I can do. So we really made sure that everybody was safe and good. But yeah, that was, and that was tight. It was hot, and it was like that was kind of an intense catch to get, but they're so good. They were like on a dime. Those dancers were great.
Amazing. And then now the Frug, for all you viewers at home, is 3 sections. It's 3 distinct. There's the aloof, the heavyweight, and the big finish. And I believe you hit all 3 of those sections, I think, in order.
I tried to do them in order, while at the same time, again, like, not, I'll always say with the season, well, even last season, but it's like Farrago, it's a little, if need be, I'm going to pull it, again, like,
Totally.
even something like the Lamb Hooves, or like, if it's something that can help and be fun and funny, or, helpful, I'll pull from anything. So, but
And you did the arms,
yeah,
where they have the
bump, bump.
Lucy arm. Yeah.
Yep. At the very end, that was again like a smash up of like kind of like, to me, that was like the greatest hits in like,
Yeah.
like,
And you got all my favorite moments. The whole, the wrist, I can't do it, but the whole wrist moving forward.
the jump rope.
Yeah, yeah.
Mhm.
So great. And those sock puppets. So before we leave Talk to Daddy, beyond the amazing dancers and Keegan and Cecily, what was it like with Dove in that scene? Because her reactions to everything are priceless. What did was there any fun moments with her just thrown in there? Was she there for the rehearsals for a lot of it, or was that really sort of her interaction? I can't imagine not being in that and not grooving out and really getting into it. So that was really great.
That's what's so hilarious, is she wasn't really, because she was busy doing a lot of, they all had so much to do this year. So it was really kind of the dancer, even Keegan and Cecily, to be honest, like I had them for like a brief period, like, this is your parable and we're going to throw a plane at you and you're going to open, like, I tried to make it so that they could accomplish it. I tried to make their sections so that they could accomplish it in like one straight through take, just so that they could like kind of lock it in and like do it. And like,
He almost didn't get that paper open. I was really nervous for him getting that paper open.
It was like, and I was like, yeah. And again, like the timing and the hiding of them behind him and all of that, like, like it's like inches. But yeah, but Dove was fun because like, I think she did it like as we were like camera blocking, like on the set, so she didn't really know what she was thrown into. And that's what, I may have mentioned this before, but I find so they're all, again, aside from everything they're doing, but to just drop into a number like that and like just like be your character and just go with it. It's seeing the whole season straight through just makes me, I'm in more awe of them than I already am. I mean, that they're that dialed in, so they could just like, again, just like dropping into, and I mean, and again, we shot Talk to Daddy, of course, out of order, and and just to drop into those moments and follow the arc of like where we start and where you end. It's amazing to me.
Absolutely incredible. So the second song for this episode, there's generally 3 big numbers per episode, is Something Real, which is just Dove and Aaron in a tent, pretty much just sitting there. I assume you didn't have much to do on that number.
Not much to do. I offered, I was like, if you need anything, but this, I know that you're in a tent sitting, kneeling or
And
sitting.
it's so nice because Talk to Daddy's so big, and the next number we'll talk to is so big. We'll talk about is so big that it's a nice grounded. And with the scenes too, this episode, there's something real. There's a lot of, I mentioned this in the breakdown, a lot of like real emotions and real dialogue happening this episode, bookended by these outrageous musical numbers. It's such a nice peak and valley uh thing they have with this
Yeah.
episode.
And that's why, like, to Cinco's credit and the writing team, it's really, it's even more evident this year, I feel, in terms of like when we go big, it's like we go, it's big, but then when we, when the characters have to drop into those like really deep moments and like these intimate songs and scenes like they have, especially this one with Dove and Aaron, like it's beautiful. It's just it's you really, and that to me is where I always go, like that's where you see Cinco's kind of heart in the show, without question. Like, I mean, it's I wouldn't say it's easy, but it's like you could be funny and but it's like to have that heart in the middle of all of that ness is like that's rare to be able to find the balance of that. And I really feel that he and the writers and then the cast, it really just when I watch it, I because I'm usually doing the big numbers in this room, and then I'm like shooting the big numbers, and then to see it all put together and to see all of the other beautiful work that they did is just, I'm constantly amazed as I keep seeing them.
And he wrote that, I don't know if you know, but he wrote the melody at least to Something Real when he was 19 years old, Cinco.
Oh my gosh, I didn't know that. Wow.
Yeah,
Wow.
it's amazing. He'd had that since he was 19 and just enamored with Stephen Schwartz and sort of wrote his own love
Oh, wow.
song-esque number. So he's the man's a genius. Everyone on this show, you included, are just genius.
Wow.
So then we get to the other crazy bookend number. We get to Good Enough to Eat.
Ain't got no dad, ain't got no mom, but are they sad or are they glum?
Now they confront a world that's boiling with the sweetest smiles you've ever seen. Oh, they're good enough to eat. Delicious.
So, all right, so off the bat, you had. So let's talk about working with the kids, because you got to do last season. You did one of probably my favorite number, With All of Your Heart, with the kids, and now this number. What are the differences and challenges and joys of working with these children on these numbers?
I thought you were going to say, what are the difference between the two numbers? I was going to say,
little different.
No, I mean, the hardest part is that you don't really get them that long. Like that's the hardest part is, because they have, of course, they have strong and good union rules that you can only work them so many hours. And they're also doing school. And then again, with COVID, and it's like, so the time you get with them is it's so specific and so precious. And, and to have to go in so prepared so that you're not teaching young performers like three versions of something, it's like, this is what you're learning. So that's the challenge is really just time. I mean, it's time. But then the best and great part is the flip side of that is you have these, of course, like talented young performers. I don't, because they're not just dancers, they were singing too. I mean, these talented performers who can do all of these things. And so you have all of that at your fingertips, and they work so hard. And another shout out to them and their parents, because the parents are just as invested as the kids are. And they like this. I mean, if we do one for next year, like I could talk about how we had to teach With All of Your Heart, which was, I've never had to, that process I've never, which I learned from, thank goodness, for this season, knowing that we had them for so short a time. like made videos so they could take home, like really breaking it down, facing away from the camera, facing the camera, you know, so that they had everything they needed, even when they weren't, you know, so on the drive home, they could like go over it again, or they had visuals, or we tried to really make it as easy as possible on them to learn what they had to learn. Because it was that our time with them personally was so short. And so I, again, a shout out to them, but the parents too, because the parents, they would come back in and they would always be better, because you could tell the parents were at home, and none of them felt pushy or in that kind of way, but just that like they were all invested. And I think, again, grateful to be working during COVID. And I think everybody was happy to be there and a part of something special. So even the parents were like invested as much as we all were. And, you know, they took it all home and came back, and they were always better than the day before. It was great.
We may not be respectable, but we are so delectable. Don't mean to be presumptuous, but truth is we are scrumptious.
They were all just so sweet and so happy to be there. And yeah, they were little pros. It was really fun.
Amazing. And you had one returner, Bijou, who played Tootie last season, who was in With All Your Heart.
Yes.
So you got at least one returner, so that must have been fun.
Yeah. And well, and that was part of the, I mean, this isn't as much an Easter egg as like, it was tricky because we did lose a couple kids during the process to COVID, like there were a couple like cases. And so all of a sudden we were getting, then new kids had to learn it, and new partners, and you're throwing plates to people. It was like, oh.
Well, that was literally my next question, is how many broken plates were there on set that day?
I mean, none. They were made out of like a thick plastic, so they couldn't really break. I mean, they had all the weight of, I mean, that was all true. But oh my gosh, we had plate throwing practice. I mean, it was, and that, you know, and again, to these kids' credit, like and it wasn't even for that long a section, but they're on like different levels of this table, like throwing them across the
cartwheels
and cartwheeling and coming up and catching them. And I can do, and that, but then it's that thing where then they get excited, and then it's like, oh well, let me do a front walkover with one hand and throw it up and catch it, and oh well, I could, you know, and then they start, and then, you know, it's like, well, I'll do that because you could do it. So, but it was fun trying to just kind of figure out the math of that, and like who throws to who, and what's going to go up and over, and what goes under what, and who, you know, and they got it. I mean, they were so good. Those kids were so good.
Mr. Bly, you were in for such a treat. It's a little dear, nice grass, you asked that I'd like you to meet.
Have you any ham?
Courtesy of Sam.
How about beef?
Yes, thanks to Camille.
Today?
Sydney. Kelly.
Lamb.
That's pie with some jam or jelly.
And a special shout out to Alice Comer, who did the tap dancing section with Kristen. And you could just see, I mean, you know, she's supposed to be this Miss Hannigan type, but you can see the love that this little girl has for Kristen. And in this moment, getting to perform, it just feels, you could feel how excited she is, which is really special to see. I love that little soft shoe section.
Oh, thank you. It was actually a moment that like neither of them, I think, there was a bit of joy in it. Like you couldn't not, like Kristen had to like what, she's like, how do we get out of this? And I was like, okay, like maybe there's a tug of war, and she's like, I'll give her the, you know, and I was like, that's it. Cause they were just having so much fun with it. It was like, I need an out. I need a way to get back in. So, and it was so sweet watching them. And you could tell, like, for Alice, you know, to dance with Kristen was like, you know, so,
I mean,
and Kristen,
how could it not be?
Always is like the loveliest human on earth. So she made Alice feel so comfortable and generous, and just all of, you know, she is the best. But yeah, it was fun.
So let's get into some Easter egg discussion. So there's two obvious ones that I pointed out in the breakdown. There's the what I've been told now after the fact are charred leaves, the big leaves that are doing
the
All I
big
Care
leaves.
About,
Yes.
going around, which was amazing. Is that something? Did you say I need leaves? I need giant leaves.
As I got, well, that came into, well, that whole kind of bit kind of came up because again, I didn't want to. I knew where I wanted it to go. Like I was, well, not new, but at least I was hoping to build it in a certain way as to not kind of blow it all out at the top. So at the start of the number, there was like a kind of like that whoosh of like, oh, this place is filled with these kids and they're like, flipping on the tables and throwing plates and things. And, but then it was like, okay, but we have to then, I wanted to not overshadow Cinco's smart counterpoint there too, because it's so great to hear the kids underneath Alan and Kristen. And I was like, I didn't want that to get lost. So it was like, oh, let's have them, like, they're going to make, I was like, I'm either never going to work again after this number, or I was was very nervous. They're making the broth that they would end up being marinated in. So I can't even believe I'm saying these things. But no, so it's like, so they're the ones adding the ingredients to the pot. And so it came out of that more than anything. It was like, oh, well, of course there would be some like cabbage or some, because I was thinking of like Oliver and gruel and all that kind of like that kind of idea for like the line leading up. And so they were going to just dump veggies and seasonings into the into the pot. So the leaves actually came out of that. And then it was like, oh, we could do like a fun vaudeville wheel with it, and then there was the build to the final chorus, which was, Kristen going full, opera on us, which was amazing. And it was
so
course,
beautiful.
like, oh, and she's like, well, can I have a fan? Yeah. So, and then it's huge red fan and against the green of even little details like that was, so great and colorful, and then fun ripple to Alan. But yeah, that was definitely, but at the same time, that was being in Chicago, that was a bit of a nod to All I Care About Is Love, obviously. But
so what's the turnaround? I mean, I know when you say I need a bunch of giant green leaves, and then they say, okay, how quickly can they get that stuff to you?
I mean, I said it before, this props department on the show. I mean, I think it was the next day. I mean, they were making things, you ask for it and suddenly it's there, and you're like, I don't know how, who made that? I mean, and it's like, and again, to the detail, of the shading of because they obviously weren't real leaves, but like the detail of the veins in the leaves and the shading, and I'm like, I just asked for these 2 days ago, and they were constantly blowing my mind the entire process, because it's like you have an idea and you hope, and then like suddenly it's there, and it's
amazing.
It's amazing.
The prop department. Well, I know we've got a story about the props department we'll tell in a little bit, which I can't wait to share with everyone. But back to the number, I think everyone lost their mind. Every theater nerd in America, in the world, lost their minds when the kids busted out with the Turkey Lurkey move, the Turkey Lurkey arms. Not only was it such a great Easter egg, just a great move, a great almost inside joke for theater nerds, but it's also talking about a type of meat, which, I mean, so what? Tell me about the origin of the Turkey Lurkey. I mean, chef's kiss.
Well, but no, but it was one of those moments where it almost happened quick, because when Cinco told us the period we were in, I was like, oh, okay, well, like that's like we were trying to get like something from Promises in. So we were, like Promises was on the list, and I was like, oh, I've wanted to do that in every, like I've been wanting to get that out so bad. And I was like, okay, well, where does it go? And it was literally like, oh, I know exactly where this goes. I was like, I know exactly where this goes. and again, I was like, I'm either gonna be run out of town on a rail, or because
Or they're going to build a statue to you in Times Square, which I think is closer to the case.
but then the second we did it in the studio, I was like, oh no, this is like, it's worth everything. And what was fun was knowing where we were going was the backwards build, because I don't know, like Easter egg wise, I don't know if fans caught it or not, but when the girl who does the gymnast, Mary Lou, we did as Retton, so like this little Mary Lou and try her brother, that's when the flipping started. That's like, oh, she should tumble into the frame. Oh, we should start with, and make her the third, which is the joke. So it was like, so we had that. But then when they say, and try her brother too, that was my first, I don't know if people caught it, but that's, and try her brother too. So that was the first drop in. And then we went into the kick crosses that they do between the desks on Promises, and then the parting the arms, and then into the big wind up. And I was like, people might sniff it, they might get it on this, but it still looks like kids having fun. But I was like, I think they might pick up on it with this, like, it's coming. That was my hope. So for all of the theater, I was like, I hope that's where it kind of clicked, and it was like, you saw that, like, here it comes, and then it came, and then so it was
so good. And then the ends of the year. I think my Twitter, at least, Turkey Lurkey was trending that night for sure. Everyone was. And then another thing I noticed this afternoon while rewatching for the gajillionth time to talk about this, to do this interview, they sort of end on the Sweeney poses, Alan and Kristen, her with the bell and him with his knife, which I can't believe I didn't clock sooner. I feel like a dummy.
No, but that was, and yeah, it was like the mashup of like Annie and Oliver, and it was kind of all of them. Like that would be Sutton, we gave her some little Charleston arms for Bijou there, and there are a lot of little like little drop-ins here and there, but those were, I think, the most kind of specific in terms of Easter eggs. But yeah, the Promises actually starts from the point, but
so good. So now we were talking a bit about the amazing props department, and you had sort of teased, my patrons got a little preview of your story last time, but speaking of the happiness bus, going back to the happiness bus, which is the VW bug, not the love bus, which is the big bus. That's the difference.
that was
you really, really liked that happiness VW bus. Tell me how you almost acquired it.
Okay, so I'll try to make this quick because it was, but so we had a VW van growing up as children, me and my sister and my family. So we had a VW van, and I've since been wanting one. I don't know. It's the retro, and it just brings back a lot of like really fun memories. And so I've kind of been wanting one. And then when I saw that there was one in the show and not a big long bus, and I saw it, I was like, oh my God, it wasn't painted yet. It was just yellow. And I was like, I wonder if they would consider, knowing that I'd take a little souvenir or two. And it kind of like got around. It was like, oh, well, like, oh, I'm going to take this. And, who's saying I'm going to take this? And I was like, oh, I want the happiness bus. I'm going to take, and then it's like, how you go? Well, I can maybe have someone drive it back, or I'll drive it part way and maybe take a flight. I don't know. I'll figure it out, but it's worth having. Like, it's really cool. So, blah, 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 blah. We were just chit chatting, fun talking about it. So it's one of the last days on set, and the head of props came up with a lot of the prop team with him, and surprisingly, like a bunch of the crew and like like Micah was there, Cinco was there, and I was like, what's happening? And and he had a box, like it was it was a paper bag, like a gift bag box, with tissue paper, and I was like, uh-oh. And literally I was like, no, please don't, this better not, no. Like, there better not be keys in there. I'll be really like so excited at the same time, like very, like,
What am I going to do with the bus now?
what am I going to do with this thing? And I opened the tissue paper and pulled out, to this day, one of the most special items, gifts, I've ever received. And I have it here, and I will show you.
I have not seen it. I am so excited.
They now, before I show this, they were working their butts off on this show. Like, I mean, I keep talking about them, the detail. I mean, you know, and the fact that they managed to squeeze this in, and when you see is no small feat, like it literally means I will never part with this. Like, this is something that will stay, like, it's on my, like, this, it will be on whatever desk or whatever, wherever I am, because this is really special. This is the, they put, here's the close-up of the bus. It's fully painted, the entire thing, all sides.
And that's like identical.
It's the identical design. It's Happiness Bus. Then they also put its own logo with Cecily and Keegan and Aaron, Topher in front of the bus with green. It's all laminated. I mean, I'm clearly not opening this.
Yeah.
But it's like an actual product you can buy from. I mean, look, it even has the official. I mean, it's literally, it's our.
Wow.
I mean, talk about, this is the people who we got to work with. Like, this is the kind of love and just the love for each other, and kind of the love for putting this together that you can see. I mean, that just doesn't happen. And especially on a tight schedule with a million, deadlines. I mean, to do that was, I have no words. I mean, it was really, really, really special.
That is incredible. Wow. Yeah, the props to the props department for this whole show.
Yeah, truly. I mean, it's second to none. It's beyond
amazing. Well, thank you for sharing that story and that amazing, when they eventually will have the Schmigadoon Museum, that'll be one of the prize displays.
Truly.
Well, thank you so much for chatting. Episode 4. This was so much fun. I love hearing all these details.
Thank you. I have two other shout outs we could do in order, or we could splice, but
yeah,
because I'm gonna keep giving more shout outs as we go, as I have been kind of through, but specifically for this episode, because I'll get all of the dancers and pre-viz dancers, because they get the final curtain, in my opinion.
Yeah.
I mean, they get the final bow for sure. But I have to, I mean, thanks Stephen Binsky for the pre-viz on Talk to Daddy. I mean, that he in the room in New York, coming up with, like, making those overhead shots happen, and like setting up the chairs, and like capturing walking through the chairs, and like making it so clear the hopefully, like, what I wanted to achieve on film. Like, I feel like what he was able to capture in pre-viz world, by the way he shot things, that led to kind of what you were able to see. Because I think the team was so excited about what, even just those ideas, that they were like, oh, we're going to make them happen. It was a lot of shots and we didn't have a lot of time, but I think they were so excited about the possibility of seeing what was on the pre-viz happen in real life. And so I really thank Stephen for that, because that, you know, and then I also have to do a special shout out to Jenny Ford, who was my associate on the project up in Vancouver. I've known Jenny for over 20 years. We danced together way back, and she was free. She was up in Vancouver, and this all worked out perfectly. And she was, I mean, she was amazing through the entire process. You know, I could go on and on and on, but I have to, just because we're talking about Good Enough to Eat, like, she was so great with those kids. I mean, she really helped. I mean, I feel like I usually have the patience of a saint in terms of, like, I'm really good about like letting people have their process, and like to be able to, like I said, have such limited time with them and have to be so focused, and like to be able to tag team with her to really make sure that they did the number, that they performed the number as well as they did. I have to give a lot of credit to that, to her, because I mean, she was just like the right person in the right moment at the right time
Hmm.
with to really help those kids and have the right attitude and spirit. And so that's another special shout out for sure, again, for the whole season, but because we're talking about this number today, like,
Yeah.
for sure.
Well, thank you for shouting them out. That's one thing I really is important to me with these breakdowns and my other breakdowns is naming the names and shouting out the people who deserve it. And thank you, Stephen also is responsible for you viewers at home for getting a lot of these previz things for these breakdowns so you guys can see them. So we are all grateful to both of those people, Jenny and Stephen, for their work on the show and for everything after. And yeah, for the next two episodes and at the end, we will definitely shout out all the dancers, all the previous people, because we all love them.
That's why they get the final, in my opinion, they get the final shout out, because we had lots of time together, and they, you know, other things were quick, and you know, it's catch as catch can, but you know, like season 1, season 2, like, and even the pre-pro, like, dance, like, that's family. That was my family. I mean, I can only think of things or maybe come up with some things, but they're executing the work, and that's, you know, I'm only as good as they are. So it's really it's all them.
Amazing. Well, thank you. Thank you so much for being here yet again. I can't wait to see and dive into episodes 5 and 6. I am so excited. I cannot wait to see where it all goes. And I guess until next time, thank you.
Yeah, I'll talk to you soon.
As always, a huge thank you to Chris Gattelli for taking the time and being here and for sharing his stories and process with all of us fans. And as both of us said before, a huge thank you to Stephen Binsky as well for helping us all enjoy seeing the process through the previz footage. And a huge thank you for this episode to Alice Comer, Rebecca and Haven Jin, and Bob and Bijou Bratson for providing and allowing us to use those amazing pictures and rehearsal videos from Good Enough to Eat. I just love seeing all that stuff. Now, the episode 5 and 6 breakdowns with Chris are coming, but Chris is deservedly a very in-demand artist, and he's currently out of the country, so there won't be an episode next week, but after that, we should be back to hopefully every week with the rest of Season 2, and then thanks to all your encouragement and wonderful comments and messages, we will be going back, and Chris and I will be going over all of Season 1, episode by episode as well, for all those fun Easter eggs, and just more brilliance from this man. I also have been sent a crazy awesome Schmigadoon promo box with all sorts of goodies in it, so I'll do a little unboxing video with that. Plus, I'm still working on a fan art video showcasing all the amazing fan art and videos you all have shared with me. So make sure you're subscribed so you won't miss anything Schmigadoon related. Plus, there will be tons of more non-Schmigadoon related musical theater history videos coming as well. Have an idea for something you want to see on the channel? Let me know in the comments. I'm all ears. If you are enjoying these videos, please leave a like. Just click that little thumbs up button. It goes so far in helping others find this channel and enjoy this content. Follow me on the socials at bwayghostlight. There's a link in the description for fun Schmigadoon themed shirts like the ones you see here and also some other fun goodies. There's also a link to my Patreon in the description where there are fun clips and some cut material from these Chris Gattelli interviews and other great perks. A special big shout out to my producer level patrons. You guys can always talk to this daddy. But until next time, I'm Mark Bonanni. This is Broadway by Ghostlight. Thanks for watching. So tell me all the secrets for season 3. No, I'm just kidding.